Whatever you give dominant thought to, whether it be sickness or health, success or failure, abundance or lack, love or hate, the object of your attention will be attracted to you. A good example of how this works was a man named Harold Sherman. Harold died a few years ago. He was, I think, close to 90 or maybe in his 90s. And in one of his stories, he tells about an incident in his life. He got ill. He began to have throat trouble. And he went to the doctor, and it turned out he had some kind of a mycosis. I don't know exactly what it is, but some kind of a fungus in the throat that was causing little nodules to build and grow in his throat and closing off his ability to swallow and to breathe. And it got worse and worse, and he went to all of these specialists, and they couldn't find what to do for him. They knew it, they've seen it before, but in general it had been a fatal disease. And so he finally went to his regular family doctor, and the family doctor was able to give him some treatment, some medication that relieved it for a while, but it was still progressing. And he felt, or a lot of people felt, a lot of professionals felt, that he's just going to die, as so many other people have from that condition. Well, he was, as I say, a metaphysician. He began to apply all through this process his knowledge toward it. And one day he went to a lecture, just on the spur of the moment. There was a medical missionary that had come into his town from Africa to do some fundraising, and he was giving a lecture, and so Harold went to hear him speak. And he sat in there, and it was interesting, and afterward he bumped into him in the restaurant, little coffee shop next to the auditorium where the lecture had been. They got to talking, they sat together, and the doctor asked him, he says, I can't help but notice that you seem to be having trouble with your throat. And I don't want to pry. I generally don't impose myself on others, but you want to tell me about it. So Harold, who normally would not share a whole lot, you don't run around and saying, well, I have what the doctors say is an incurable disease, and then everybody's getting, oh, incurable disease, and then immediately they begin to create a thought pattern around that. Well, he understands how this works. But he decided that he was going to go ahead and share with him, and he told him about it and told him what the diagnosis was. And the doctor smiled and he said, we can handle that. And he told him what it was, and he gave him a prescription or a procedure that involved a variety of things, including an ungodly concoction of something made with creosote to paint the inside of his throat. And lo and behold, he started using that. The nodules started drying up and dropping off, and his swelling went down, and he was cured for it to never come back again. That's pretty incredible, isn't it? Now the question that I want to add, well, it turned out this doctor, when he was working in Africa, he was working with a tribe where there were a lot of people dying of that very disease. He was working with a Chinese medical missionary who happened to be there at the same time, brilliant young man, and they worked together, and they finally came up with this concoction, this procedure that were curing the people there where they were dying before. Now the question I ask, why do we bring this story up? Well, it's an interesting story, you have to admit, but it is related to what I'm talking about. What do you think the odds are that one person on a planet with 6 billion people would be able to find the one person or one of the very few people somewhere who understood this condition and had a solution for it? Pretty slim, aren't they? Well, some of you look at it and you say, well, it's, 1 in 6 million. Well, if there are two guys, there's 2 in 6 million. 1 in 3 million, okay. But that makes it a little better, doesn't it? Thank you. But at any rate, just think about that. And some people look at it and say, well, it's pure coincidence. Those coincidences do happen. Maybe, folks. I'm not arguing with that. On the other hand, it did happen, and it does happen often. And I want to read something to you that Ernest Holmes, our founder, wrote, and this appears in the Science of Mind textbook. The chapter is entitled Principles of Successful Living. It's on page 278. Holmes says this, directly related to this little African story. He said, if it were a bit of information that was needed for the demonstration that only one person on earth knew, and that person were in the center of Africa, the information would be produced. Isn't that incredible? Well, others may think it's a coincidence, but Ernest Holmes believes the way I do, so we must be right, of course. Two of us agree. But this sort of thing happens all the time. It's just kind of incredible. It's like we create a mental atmosphere. It's like a radio signal, the magnetic mental radio signal, but you know what I get, that goes out and it couples with what it is like and attracts it directly into one's experience. It's the focus of attention. How many times have I told you, made the comment that there's a power in the universe, a power for good, a power that will flow right to the focus of your attention and manifest accordingly. And that's what we're talking about here. That's what we mean when we talk about the power of attraction or the law of attraction. It is the creation of a mental atmosphere. Now, you want to know what your mental atmosphere looks like? Just take a look at your life, because that's a direct reflection of what your mental atmosphere is like. Now, this whole business of the law of attraction, it's real. It really works, and it's not a new idea. It's been around for thousands of years. Back in pre-Egyptian times, there was a mystic by the name of Hermes Trismegistus. And some people say, well, it's pure myth. I don't care whether he was a myth or whether he was a real person. There's a lot that has been attributed to him, things that he was supposed to have said. Hermes Trismegistus means thrice honored, and I have no idea what the three honors happen to be. But he's thought of as one of the great mystics of the ages. And one of his famous statements is this one that some of you may have heard. As above, so below. As below, so above. What there is at the higher levels of awareness, of consciousness, is going to express itself at the lower level or the material level, or what you see expressed is a direct reflection of that which was above. Now, doesn't that sound familiar? There was a little Jewish rabbi about 2,000 years ago. He wasn't so little, actually. He made the comment in what's come to be known as the Lord's Prayer. He said, on earth as it is in heaven. He's saying exactly the same thing. There will be manifest at this realm, this material realm, what is conceived of at the higher levels of consciousness. That's the law of attraction. The outer is going to be reflected, or is a reflection of that which is within. Now, there are things that will impede one's ability to be able to develop a strong attractive field, positive attractive field. In other words, a mental atmosphere that is useful to you, that is going to be helpful. And some of these things that impede them, they're almost all based in fear of some sort. You know, fear is the anticipation of something in the future, or the worry from the past that conditions the way you are going to behave today. And what is fear but a very, very powerful mental focal point for you? And if you are attracting the power of the universe, the manifesting power of the universe, and it is flowing directly to your dominant thought, what do you think you're going to be producing in your life? See, that fear, just like Job said, that which I feared the most I have brought upon me. And we do that. We do that an awful lot. So it's the focus of our attention. When we give it to fear, that's going to impede the ability to develop this mental atmosphere, this like magnetic atmosphere that we create that attracts to us according to what is embodied within it.